Well, welcome back. I feel like this last week was a little bit interesting. We had some, I would say, some controversial conversations. It was mostly me, to be honest. It was mostly me opening my big fat mouth and offending people.
Yeah, so we just decided to keep going with the topic of vaccinations. I think both of us, even though it's a controversial topic, I think both of us like discussing it. And I actually think we got a lot of feedback from just various people that also, I think, enjoy the conversation.
Yeah.
And are happy that we're talking about it. I think there were definitely a few that were like, please don't make a part 2. So it was kind of fuel to make a part 2.
Did you notice that there was a theme in who it was that was saying that? Like what type of person it was?
Yeah, I mean, I did get a lot of messages, not a lot, I would say several, from healthcare workers, especially. I think, sometimes it can feel like a personal attack when that's the industry that you work in.
Yeah.
But I don't feel personally, and I don't feel like you feel this way either, that we're trying to attack anyone. It's really just, why can't we discuss this as parents?
Mm-hmm.
Why can't we have a say in what we want to do with our children? We should be able to talk about this without people freaking out.
Yeah, we should. The thing that, when it comes down to this, the thing that I want people to understand is that Caitlin and I are not anti-science. We're not anti-vaccine.
And we don't think that you're a sheep if you vaccinate your children.
No.
We want to make that clear.
We do. We don't
Yeah.
think that you're sheep.
Yeah.
What my issue with the whole vaccine thing is that, I don't know. I don't know if it's because of my background in sales or childhood trauma that I've dealt with, but I question the underlying motive or the underlying foundation or the premise of why can't we question it? Mm-hmm. When you trace it back, there's actually some real answers to that. And it's not by accident that we're not supposed to question it. So I did some research over this weekend. I knew that there's reasons why we're not supposed to question it. And it led me to reading about this guy called his name is Edward Bernays. He was actually Sigmund Freud's nephew. What Edward did was he was the founder of modern propaganda. And what he learned is that having people feel a specific kind of way about, if you want something to be unquestionable, like a product, a thing, a movement, you have to attach it to morals. The kind of people that have used his work were the Nazis. They legitimately used his work and his philosophies. Mm-hmm. Big Tobacco has used it, and so has Big Pharma. Okay? Now, am I saying that he's an evil guy? No, not necessarily. But what I'm saying is that he understood how to play the masses and make things that, should be able to be discussed about unquestionable because they're attached to morals. Big Pharma has turned what they are, and they've hidden it under a mask of altruism. And what they are, to be really clear, is they're not doctors. They're not altruistic in the same way that frontline workers are.
Yeah.
Like doctors and nurses who, generally speaking, they're very good people. They care about people.
Yeah.
They want to help people.
Mm-hmm.
What Big Pharma is it's a machine that prioritizes profits over everything else. And look, I say this as a fellow business owner. It's not possible to have an altruistic business that size. I can have altruism be a driving force behind my businesses because my businesses are still small and I have a lot of control over it. But when you have to answer to shareholders, at the end of the day, if you are rewarded, if you're running the business and you're rewarded or punished based off of what happens at the end of the day on the bottom dollar, you're going to prioritize profits over everything else. And that's why big corporations like Big Pharma, they're machines that don't have the same level of altruism or thought or care as the frontline workers do. But because of the way that Edward Bernays has taught this, mm-hmm. and the way that Big Pharma, they're not stupid. They've attached themselves like leeches to frontline workers and make it so if you attack big pharma, you're attacking the front line, to the point where, like you said, the majority of people that did reach out and were upset with it were frontline workers that honestly, it offends them.
Yeah.
It offends them, but you have to ask the underlying motive, or the underlying, like, you have to look at it and recognize that the system, they're in the system, but they're not of the system.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. It's so much bigger than that.
It is bigger.
And something that I was thinking about too, I feel like, because I actually went back and listened to Candace Owens today, and I think a lot of people are probably familiar with her series that she did called A Shot in the Dark. And I'm going to keep listening to it because I haven't listened to all of it and I really want to. But she kind of talks about that, where it's like, why can't we go to our pediatricians and ask for the ingredient list in a vaccination? You know, like, why can't we look into it without feeling like we're crazy?
Mm-hmm.
And it's just something that I wonder sometimes if healthcare workers have really like looked into the aluminums and like all of these things and the side effects and what is inside of these vaccinations that we're giving, you know. And so I guess I just don't want to have to feel like I can't ask these questions. And it's not like I'm coming at the pediatricians or questioning them like as a person. I just want to know more information, and there's nothing wrong with that. Like, and I don't think anybody should feel pressured to not ask questions.
Well, we live in a world right now where you're thought of as dumb, a tinfoil hat person, or just an overall bad person that doesn't care about the greater well-being of society if you don't fall in line with that. Mm-hmm. And again, we're both vaccinated. Like, we've had a lot of vaccines.
Well,
and we're not necessarily against vaccines.
Well, yeah. And I think like sometimes when I was listening to her today about, she was just saying like your gut instincts when it comes to your parenting are supreme, you know? Mm-hmm. And I think like no matter what anybody messages me and says, like, I think most people felt a shift and something to think about with COVID, right? And so I think we question like ingredients, for example, in like snacks that we feed our kids. And that's kind of what Candace Owen was talking about. And she was saying like, why not with vaccines? Why don't we ask doctors for the ingredient list when we do the same thing with what we feed our kids? Why wouldn't it be the same? Mm-hmm. And I don't know. Something that I thought about that you thought was that you might think was interesting is she was talking about how like we introduce food to our babies one at a time when they're young, and like to make sure that they like it settles with their stomach. Mm-hmm. And she was talking about how, why do we do so many vaccinations at one time? And remember, like we had talked about when Noah got a vaccination, I don't even remember which one, he had like a welt on his leg.
It was a lump.
Yeah. And do you ever think about that though? Like how little these kids are, and there's so many vaccines that are given at one time. And I just thought that correlation was so good. It's like we give our babies these different foods, not at one time. A lot of the time we like introduce sweet potatoes or does that make sense? Like, yeah. I don't know. I was just also thinking about that. Like, why are there 72 doses administered today? And Candace was saying, do you feel like children today are healthier?
No, they're statistically, they're not. They're not healthier.
Like then in the 1980s when she was talking about when she was born, she was saying like there's more allergies than ever. Because I brought that up last episode and you were like, I don't know much about that. But she talks about how, you know, there was a kid in her class who had there's one kid in her class that had a peanut allergy, like, and she remembers the child's name. Mm-hmm. And that was in elementary school. And now it's like allergies left and right, dairy, peanut, like, so my point to all of this is, why wouldn't you question what we're giving these young babies? Why is it so many doses now? Why wouldn't you question that? Like to me, my gut says I need to question and I need to think about this. Like, and I am shocked. I really am. If there's people out there who just don't even want to like look into these things. Like it blows my mind. Like, why wouldn't you want to be more knowledgeable? What's it going to hurt?
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. That's just where I'm at.
The reason why people don't is because they're not supposed to. It's like that by design.
Yeah.
And like I said before, Big Pharma has attached themselves to the altruism of the front line, which really, there's a massive detachment there to the point where you can't ask questions without it offending people.
Well, and you know how we felt like people joke about this, like you have a baby and you're like, what do I do now? Like I take this home, you know, what are we doing? Right. You're kind of like, and she talks about Candace Owens that like, there's nothing more vulnerable than a new parent.
That's very true.
Yeah.
It's honestly like if you strip back the layers of pretending like Big Pharma is just doing what's in the interest of every child, and they're not profit driven and they're not giving extra things.
Yeah, no kickbacks.
That there's a legitimate reason why the child vaccine schedule has exponentially increased. Then if you don't believe that, then it honestly come across really predatory.
Well, that's what she says. It's like, I don't want to think that way. I really don't. Like her saying they prey on your fear that as a new parent. Hearing that makes me just kind of feel icky, you know? I don't want to think of a doctor preying on my fear as a new parent. But at the same time, like hearing her say that, I'm thinking, yeah, I mean, I was like that as a new parent. I didn't know what I was doing.
The craziest thing about it, though, is that the doctors don't feel that way because they genuinely feel like they're doing what they should be doing.
But that's what you're saying, though, the altruism and the kickbacks that they get. Like in my brain, it's just really hard to like trust then.
Well, it's not because they're not trustworthy, but it's because the way that they're taught, the schools that they go to, the studies that they study, all of it is funded by Big Pharma. And there's nobody, and like I would dare anybody that's watching these reels or listening to this podcast, prove me wrong that Big Pharma hasn't screwed people over by pushing profits over people. Find me a single really large Big Pharma company that hasn't done that. And so when it comes down to it, it's like, it's just not true. It's not true that everything is just for the betterment of everybody and that you shouldn't question it. But because doctors, that's like the system that they're raised in. If you question the system, it feels like you're questioning them. And so
it feels like a personal attack.
But that's why they're the greatest evangelists for pushing the vaccines, because they genuinely believe it. And so when I say that I don't think people that give vaccines are necessarily sheep, I think that you are missing some layers to reality, the reality of the situation, if you look at that and just accept it for what it is, because there's a lot there if you dig into it.
Well, and something else that she brought up, and I think I've talked about this with you before, because Candace Owens, she says that she didn't have money growing up and she was really poor. And she talks about how poor people always stick to the vaccination schedule. And then as she came into more money, she just noticed that rich people and celebrities don't vaccinate their children. I don't think that's true with every single celebrity, but I think she must have noticed a pattern. And she kind of had an instinct question, like, why? If these vaccinations are life-saving, why would people with more resources and more education opt out for their family?
I know a lot of people that way. I know a lot of people that are a lot richer than we are that way.
Yeah, but isn't that interesting to you? It's just like weird to me that those celebrities would opt out when it's a life-saving vaccination in people's minds, you know, depending, right? Mm-hmm. It's just an interesting observation that, you know, she had. But why do you think that is?
I don't know. I can only speak to myself in that I feel like I'm comfortable with accepting that the world isn't black and white. You know, It's not that all vaccines are bad and all vaccines are good. To actually believe that is honestly pretty dumb. And it's not based in how the world operates at all. At all.
But I do think it's interesting that Candace Owens it sounds like completely, she's opted out of everything.
I mean, that's fine. Like if you want to err on the side of caution, I really don't think that it's going to hurt you that much. And I think there's a lot of argument to be made that it could hurt you significantly more. by just opting in to everything. I would say that it makes more sense to err on the side of caution than it does to err on the side of blind faith. And
Yeah.
systems and organizations and businesses that really are extremely self-preserving, extremely profit-driven, and have been sued for billions and billions of dollars for doing things that they shouldn't have done.
Well, and something that was interesting too that she talked about, because she had a vaccine injury, and she was talking about how Gardasil is the one that she had a reaction to.
Mm-hmm.
And the first dose that she got, she passed out. And the doctor was like, "Did you eat breakfast?" And she was like, "No." And so she thought, maybe that was why. And then the second round of it, she said she got seizures, vomiting, all of these things. So the doctor said that she shouldn't end up getting the third dose. And she said she knows a lot of women that have had vaccination injuries. And she said she felt fatigue, brain fog, and she sat in her car afterwards and she was asking herself, why did I just do that? And what did I put into my body? And just her saying that today when I was listening, I was thinking, I don't know, like, I don't personally want to give my child a vaccination that I might sit back and say, why did I just put that into my child's body?
Mm-hmm.
Do you know what I mean? Like, does that kind of hit? Because I feel like that hits now that I'm a parent.
Yeah, it does. It does hit now because they're innocent and really they're kind of at the mercy of whatever we decide to do in their behalf or not do in their behalf. And so I do feel like this weight of really wanting to make sure that what's being done for them is in their best interest.
And I'm not saying every vaccination obviously is going to have that effect, but it's just sad to me that happened to her, and that could happen to a lot of people, where I guess that Gardasil vaccination was targeted towards cervical cancer. Anyway, like, it was 90% curable. It sounded like what she was saying, like the HPV, it was one of those vaccinations that you had said, what was it? Hepatitis A?
I don't remember.
The last one that you talked about on the last episode. It was like a sexually transmitted disease, and they're giving this Gardasil vaccination to toddlers, and she's talking about the same thing. Like, why are we giving these vaccinations to toddlers that aren't sexually active? There's just no point.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway, it just made me think about that. Like, I just, like you said, erring on the side of caution, because at the end of the day, it really is our decision what we're doing to our children. I don't know what it's doing, right? Fully. Mm-hmm. I don't know if anyone really does. And I'm not saying anyone like who's vaccinated their children, I don't know, like they're doomed for life. I don't think that's the case at all. I just think we should think twice about it.
We should think twice. And truthfully, I think people should be more comfortable with sitting with the understanding that it's not a black and white issue. It's really not. And being super hard one way or super hard the other way, both of them are honestly pretty stupid. Both of them are pretty stupid, and they're more representation of dogma and like almost like faith. It's almost kind of like religion than it is an actual representation of reality. Because some vaccines are good and some aren't.
Yeah.
And that's just the truth.
Well,
like that's the actual
I've
truth.
had parents message me too and say that they have, one of my friends has 3 children and they vaccinated 2 of their kids. And then the last child, they decided not to. And they said that that's their healthiest child. Like, I'm not saying that's going to be the case with every single person, but I just think that sometimes it depends on the child and like what's needed or what we feel good about or,
Do you feel like that's an issue though? Like people just don't want to sit with the uncomfortability of the world or this issue not being black or white?
Yeah, I think I've heard a lot of different things. Like, I just know how I felt as a first-time parent, and I just didn't think about it. I was just going in and we just followed the schedule. We just really blindly trusted the pediatrician.
What was it
right?
what happened? Why did I stop trusting it? I honestly don't remember because COVID had already happened.
Because we didn't talk about it really. We kind of just did vaccinations. We were just like, yeah, it's fine. Because we had Noah in 2021, so it was after COVID, like the height of COVID. And so it's just interesting to look back on our experiences and kind of see like truly where we were at. And I think that as time went on, you questioned more and more, maybe from Noah getting that lump a little bit on his leg. I think that kind of freaked you out.
Because that lump lasted for weeks, like not just 2 weeks or 3 weeks. Like it lasted like a month and a half on his leg.
Well, yeah. And like Candace Owens was saying, just think about babies that are in the NICU, babies that are born, say 5 pounds and Noah's 8 pounds. Like she was just saying, there's all of these different babies that have different needs and they're smaller. And so why are we giving an exact list of vaccinations when I don't think it's a one size fits all? Like you're saying, it's not black and white because not every kid is the same. And so I don't remember where it really hit for us. I think it was a gut feeling that you had. And I think you brought it to me and you were like, Kate, I think we should really think about this. And I was kind of pushing back. And honestly, when I look back on why I was pushing back, I think it was really just, I didn't want to have to put the work in, I didn't want to have to, maybe like you said, sit with uncomfortable feelings, be controversial, put in the work to learn more, have more knowledge. And truly, even to this day, I still feel uncomfortable talking to pediatricians and saying we're going to opt out for now, or we're going to, delay this for now. Because even Candace Owens talks about that. She did that when she was living in Washington, D.C. She went to her pediatrician, said, we would like to opt out for now. And they said, well, we're not going to be able to see your child then. And she said, well, why is that? And the doctor said, because we don't allow unvaccinated children in the building, basically. And she was like, but all of these kids are unvaccinated. And they couldn't answer that question. It's just interesting to me that you say that to a pediatrician. And truly, yeah, they are unvaccinated until they come in and they're vaccinated, right? And so, I don't know. It was just sad to me that like kids can get turned away just because of the kickbacks maybe that they get, or I'm sure every doctor feels differently, but truly like it is a money machine. Like you've always said, it is.
And there's conflicts of interest that can't be explained away. Like if anybody wants to debate about the conflicts of interests, I'm willing to debate it because I think that history and reality and what actually has happened in the world is on my side. And the burden of proof is on everybody else to prove that Big Pharma is altruistic and everything that they do is great. Because it's not.
Yeah.
But that's not to say that everything is wrong either. Like polio vaccine, it's great. Good thing. I'm glad that happened. I'm glad that there's been a lot of medical advancements that have been.
Well, yeah, because I've gotten so many messages like that said vaccines save lives.
Yeah,
which they do. Yeah.
They do, but it's not a black and white issue. And people, like you can't just say that and dismiss the body of evidence that shows that Big Pharma isn't always straight with people and they control what doctors think and are taught. And they reward and incentivize specific behavior from the medical industry. It's like they run the show. They're the puppeteer, They're controlling and calling the shots.
Well, and I have felt pressured is what I was going to say, and I feel like I'm doing something wrong. I really do by questioning, because every single time I've said, I want to wait, I want to delay, I'm thinking about this, I want to know more information. Pretty much every single time I felt awkward. I feel weird. I don't know how to explain it. Like I wish I didn't have to feel that way to just want to know more. And question things.
Honestly, it's not really a conversation that's worth having with doctors. Somebody might push back on that.
Well, you can totally do your own research.
Yeah, I think.
But a lot of people don't even want to do that. Do that though, is what I'm saying.
Well, then you just need to decide. Decide that you're okay with believing that everything that they do is good. And you know what? That's fine. But that's not me.
Yeah,
that's not me. And you can't label me as dumb or as a tinfoil hat person. Yeah. Or you can, but it's not. But it's more of a reflection of your stupidity in believing that everything's black and white than it is with me questioning it.
I would be shocked though if anyone listening really just sat down and said, "Hey, I'm going to listen to The Shot in the Dark by Candace Owens. Listen to it this is my 2 cents, listen to one episode and tell me that you don't have questions. I'd be shocked, because really, like, I'm not saying Candace Owens is like the best person in the world, end all be all, but I'm just saying, like, there's a lot of information out there that maybe you might have a gut feeling that it's, like you said, it's not black and white, and it is a little bit off. Because that's where, when you told me what you told me, even though I didn't want to believe it, the more I sat with it, I was like, you know what? I think Josh is right. And you did the same thing with COVID. Like, I mean, I really don't know what would have happened if I wouldn't have been married to you during.
You would have
time.
gotten the shot. You just would have.
I don't know. Maybe I might have.
You would have if it had interfered with something, you know.
Yeah, and I think a lot of people felt pressured to do that, right? But that's what bothers me. I don't like that people feel pressured and they get something without knowingly. Like, they don't know exactly what they're putting into their body, you know? And we're doing that to our children.
I don't know. I feel comfortable in that situation where I can accept that it's not black and white and that there's nuance, and I enjoy it. I enjoy it because I feel like it's more in tune with the way that the world really is. And if I can't be comfortable with the way that the world really is, what does that say about me? Right?
Yeah.
Okay, so this episode is brought to you by Toro Marketing, which is my company. It's a door-to-door company where we sell pest control over the summer and in some markets throughout the year. What I wanted to share with you guys is, if you guys have friends or family that are looking for work, or they're getting ready to come home off of a mission and they're looking for a place or a way to kind of become a little bit more financially independent, or just have a really good learning experience, if you recommend them and introduce them to us and they come out and work with us, then one of the cool things is that we'll actually give you a $500 gift card if they sign with us. And some of the things that you should know about them potentially working with me is that when it comes to door-to-door, I've done it for 13 years. In the door-to-door space, I'm fairly well known. What I'm known for is for breaking a sales record, for selling the most accounts. I broke the all-time record back in 2019. And so I don't say that to puff myself up, but really to kind of give you an understanding of my pedigree when it comes to sales. I help people make around $100,000 or more during a summer, and it's not an atypical thing. It's more often that they'll make around 30,000, 20 to 30,000, but I help people all the time make that much money. And it's really not, for me, it's not so much about the money. I'm not like most door-to-door companies in the sense that I put a lot of emphasis on the glitz and the glam and the things that really don't matter. The reason why I'm passionate about door-to-door is because I believe that it's the perfect vehicle for self-development. Like, it's the closest thing to the mission for me in the sense that it really has helped me become a better version of myself. And so truly, I think that everybody that's coming home from a mission should have some sort of experience with door-to-door. Essentially, if you have friends or family that you know would be interested in door-to-door, but you're not sure who they should go with or work with, if you introduce us to them and we're able to sign them, we would happily give you guys $500, like a gift card. So feel free to reach out to us directly through our Instagram platform to connect me with them.
So I was just thinking we could like talk about some of the responses that I got. So there was one that said reasons why, you know, this woman stopped giving vaccinations to her kids. And she was saying, I've heard way too many negative things now that I didn't know, and it's not worth it. Some kids are okay, but some kids have really bad reactions. My midwife had a feeling with her youngest daughter to not get the full dose of one. The nurse kept trying to push it. She went with her gut and only got half. Her daughter had such a bad reaction. The doctor said she would have died if they had gotten the full dose. That's obviously a more rare case, but they put so much junk in vaccines now. Some are preservatives, but very bad for the human body, including some have things from human fetuses. Like, that's the only source that part of some of the vaccinations come from. That and the incidence of so many diseases has gone up dramatically with the introduction of more and more vaccines. I did get some for my younger kids, but only a couple, and mostly because I felt pressured by their school. Mm-hmm. Just thought that response was interesting.
I don't think you and I will crack to pressure moving forward.
Yeah, we've definitely gotten stronger. But some of the thoughts that people said was follow the money. Absolutely not. They won't do it. Not until they get some real investigations into how safe they really are. I did get a few messages that people say this is a really hard topic for them and that they're mixed and overwhelmed. Because I do have friends that don't really want to talk about it with me.
But you know what, though? It's an okay place to be, to have mixed feelings about it. It's a mixed
bag.
It's a mixed bag.
Yeah.
It is a mixed bag. Mm-hmm. Like, I don't think it's smart to just say all vaccines are bad.
Yeah.
But it's also as equally unsmart to say all vaccines are good.
But I also don't think that, because I've been there, I can say this because I've been there. I don't think we should throw our hands up and say, I'm just so overwhelmed, I'm not going to do anything about it. I'm just going to follow the schedule and it's all good.
Mm-hmm.
I can't sit with that personally and feel fine about it.
Well, if you feel like you're overwhelmed and it's mixed and you just don't really know what to do, I think it's better to err on the side of caution. That's just my opinion.
Another response was, never ever going to give my children vaccinations. I'm glad you're talking about this publicly. Save the babies. Another one said, I trust ones like chickenpox that have been around forever, but I actually got some messages back on that and people said that chickenpox really hasn't been around as long as people think. I don't know enough about that though to say. Some are unnecessary, but some are very necessary. Another response, toxic, heavy metals, poison, black box warning. It's a no for me. And then this was another one, check out the measles outbreak and why it's happening. Vaccines work.
But I thought you learned something else that was kind of interesting about that.
Yeah, so I did get a few responses back about the measles outbreak that I just thought was interesting. A few people kind of said that it was like a hysteria type thing, that like a lot of the people who got the measles were actually vaccinated for the measles. That's what I heard. I don't know if that's true.
So the people that got the measles were already vaccinated for the measles.
Yeah. And that it was just more of like a hysteria thing. I'm not sure. I don't know enough about. Did you hear anything about the measles outbreak?
No, but it sounds like it's not as black and white as everybody says it is.
Yeah. It said, I read today that children vaccinated for it were also getting sick. The lady who messaged me said, I just went back and looked at the article and it said of the 58 people who had measles, all but 4 were vaccinated. So it wasn't an outbreak because people weren't getting the measles vaccine. Basically, though, I was going to say Candace Owens was also talking about how it's become a marriage between drug cartels and the government. And she was saying that they're in lockstep. So she used this example, like you put cocaine in an injection, you tell people they need this, or their children are going to die. That was the dream in Mexico, but it's a reality in America today. And she talks about how they have power via their money, basically, and influence and, just mass censorship, basically, and to wake up out of that. And so it kind of freaked me out hearing that a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. Any thoughts on that?
I mean, could anybody prove that that's incorrect? I don't think so. I mean, I
could you? I don't know.
I don't think that you could really. I mean, like drug cartels, like is it the Sinaloa cartel? Probably not.
Yeah.
But does it operate and function in a similar way where drugs are being massively pushed and it's in lockstep with the U.S. government and there's massive distribution channels and it's advertised to us and there's a moral imperative attached to consuming it? Absolutely, it's true.
So my final thoughts on this, I feel like my eyes have been opened. I don't know. I feel like I'm finally like coming to terms with just being more aware and wanting to be more educated. And I don't personally want to just move forward with the vaccination schedule where it stands. And I really am just looking out for the best interest of my kids, our kids. And that's my gut instinct. That's my parental feeling of it's not black and white, like we keep saying. Mm-hmm. And I feel good about it. And I don't think I'll regret delaying, because at least we can really feel it out and we can really make informed decisions rather than just saying, okay, at 4 months, we get every single vaccination, And I don't want to be bullied into anything. And I think that's where I get a lot of like weird feelings, where I have felt as a parent now really pushed into certain decisions that I don't like totally feel comfortable with. Mm-hmm. And I know that there's more to it. And I don't know everything about, the more to it, but I do feel like from what I hear, it's always money driven. There's kickbacks. I do think that there's so many people, like you said, in the healthcare industry that are incredible, have good intentions, that want to save lives, that do save lives every single day. And I was vaccinated. I feel like, that was the decision my mom made. And, I feel fine. I feel like I'm healthy. But I don't think we live in the same era as the 80s, the 90s. That's where I'm at.
For me, like with where I'm at a place where honestly, I just am kind of curious. Like I'm gonna never not be curious, particularly people on the side of being pro-vaccine 100% all the way. I'm curious why they can't see what it is. In truth, it's like politics almost. It's like conservatism and capitalism, even though I am pro-capitalist because I'm a business owner and I like small government so it doesn't get in my way. There has to be limits. Like there's no perfect answer for everything.
Yeah.
And so it's just like we don't live in a black and white world. And it's interesting to me to see people cling to black and white things when it's not black and white. And it makes me question why.
It will always be nuanced, I feel like, with this topic.
It will, for this topic, there are things in the world that are black and white.
Yeah, definitely.
This isn't one of them.
Yep.
But truthfully, where I stand on it, I don't really feel like we need our children to be vaccinated. And I'm distrustful not of healthcare workers. I'm distrustful of the underlying assumptions. And so are we tinfoil hat because we don't believe in vaccines or we don't believe the science? No. I question the underlying assumptions, which, let's be honest, prove to me I'm wrong, because you can't. You can't prove to me that I'm wrong. If anybody wants to debate on it, I'm welcome. This is the third time I've said this in this podcast. I'm welcome. Like, anybody's welcome to comment on this reel and whatever, say whatever they want to. I'll engage with it. I feel like I kind of have a DGAF. I don't give an F what anybody somebody could tell me their opinion. It's not going to change how I think about myself. Okay, like I'm not.
Well, because this is personal, because we have kids now.
Yeah.
And it's not the same world that we used to live in. It's just not. So,
no.
Yeah, I think that we all should be passionate. Whatever way you want to go, whatever way you feel good about, we support, And I think at the end of the day, you are your kid's, parent, and whatever you feel is right, you should do. And I don't judge anybody for that. I really don't. I really don't. I do feel, though, that if somebody's going to sell it to me as it being a black and white issue, and that vaccines and big pharma and doctors are all on the side of altruistic good that shouldn't be questioned, the burden of proof is on them. Prove it to me. Prove to me that the underlying assumptions that I believe, which are that there is massive internal feedback loops that are massively biased, prove to me I'm wrong. Why? Prove to me why it should be viewed as a white only situation. Yeah, and I think me and Josh, I think for the most part, we love to talk about controversial things, especially you. And I think it's interesting to just hear all facets and all sides. And I have friends that work in the healthcare industry. So do I. And I told you that I had a friend, reach out to me, and I told him, I was like, we can talk in person and talk about it. I like to hear the other side of what people think as well. But at the end of the day, like I said, you just have to make the best decision for your family. Mm-hmm. Each vaccination, whether you opt out, you opt in, just it's up to you and what you feel good about. But I feel happy that we aren't I really felt at peace, honestly, even though I was scared to talk about this. I feel at peace with us talking about it, because last time when we first, started talking about it, I was kind of praying, in my mind of where this episode would go. And I really feel like that's the way it was supposed to go. Mm-hmm. I think that this needs to be out in the open, and we need to be talking about it. So I'm proud of you for taking it that way. And, we're open books, and we'll chat with anybody who wants to. Mm-hmm. And I hope you guys don't take what we say in a bad light. We are loving people and open people, mm-hmm. At the end of the day, we're opinionated, but I do think that we're open to talking about things. We are. So maybe I'm a little bit of a jerk, but
if you think any kind of way about us because we think this way, I think it says more about you than it does about us.
I'm sure people do, but
I don't care.
It's all good.
I don't care what
Let
they
them,
think.
right? You know,
Yep.
like I'm listening to the Mel Robbins "Let Them" theory, and I'm like all about that right now. I'm just like, let them, let everybody do what they want to do, and I'm cool. So, but thanks so much for tuning in. And if there's anyone out there that you think would resonate with this, or this is just an interesting topic that you want to share, definitely share the episode, subscribe, rate, review,
All those good things.
share it with your peeps. And thanks so much for tuning in, and welcome to the zoo.